Know that the Lord himself is God. It is he who has made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him, bless his name. For the Lord is good, his loving kindness is everlasting, and his faithfulness to all generations.
Thank you, Xander, for the scripture reading. And Greg, there's a whole bunch of verses in He Is My Everything I never heard before, so we're learning some new stuff. It is good to see everyone that is here today. It kind of depends on what songbook and what program you're using, I guess. And apparently that was also the King James version of As the Deer, not the New King James Version, which that thee and you confuses me and gets me every time. There was a movie that came out a long time ago called Groundhog Day. And I'm sure you're familiar with the premise of it, or maybe you've seen it before. In fact, I think a long time ago, I was dating Zinni, and Greg was like 25, and he hosted a youth devo where we actually discussed the movie Groundhog Day, and I remember it because we were sitting back there in room 3 in a circle talking about this very topic of what would you do if you were going to live one day over and over again. And that's the premise of the movie. Bill Murray's character in it is kind of stuck in this endless loop where he wakes up every morning with the clock radio going off to Sonny and Cher singing, and then he repeats the same day over and over again. And at first, he kind of gets into this weird depression, and he tries to end his life, and it doesn't go well, and then he kind of spends time trying to fill every kind of vice and take advantage of people. He steals money and all sorts of things with that. And then he realizes that that's empty. That's no way to repeat the same day over and over again. So instead, he spends the time in personal betterment, piano lessons, ice sculpting, and things like that. And then it kind of transitions in the movie where he's trying to do more good deeds with this day over and over again. And he gets kind of stuck on this idea of trying to help this homeless man who dies every day that he repeats. And every day he's trying something new to help this guy stay alive. And kind of this futile message of it is, no matter how good he is, no matter how many good relationships he has and all this, he can't save this guy. And yet, even though he can't save that guy, he still finds joy in spending time doing good and spending time with people that he cares about. It's a really unique movie. But that idea of if you were going to repeat the same day over and over again, what would you do with it is kind of an interesting thought process. Or maybe even a little bit more morbid, it'd be if you had one day left to live, what would you do? Now, I know when I was a kid, I'd be like, well, I'd go to Disneyland and I would eat all the pizza or whatever it was. But really, when you start thinking about it, that's probably not what you would do. What would you do if you only had one day left to live? How would you live your life? What would you value? Who would you want to be around you? What would you spend your time doing? Or even a more simple thought process. If your house was on fire, what would be the first thing you'd worry about? Questions like that kind of put things into perspective, because a lot of the items that we spend time doing, spend time thinking about, worrying about, getting us up early, keeping ourselves up late, and all those kinds of things are all ways in which we kind of are engaging in this lifelong quest to try to find meaning. I think all of us are trying to find meaning to life in some way. Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? What is my path that I'm supposed to be engaged in? What's the right decision? What is the wrong decision? Now, sadly, what a lot of us do is we do try to find meaning in life, but the way we try to find meaning is the wrong way. We try to find meaning in life with the things that John would say are all that's in the world: lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, the pride of life. That's all that really is in the world. It's not from the Father. And so often we spend our life trying to find meaning in those things. That next purchase will bring my life meaning. That next accomplishment will bring my life meaning. Getting through this season into the next season of my life will bring my life meaning. Getting this project done will bring my life meaning. Having this much money, this many followers online, whatever it is, will give my life meaning. And what it comes down to is that most of us are seeking to find meaning in life in all the wrong places and all the wrong ways and in ways that are wrong. And we think that this or that or going here or doing this will give my life meaning. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't. And I know we've looked at this book of the Bible before. I know I've taught on this book of the Bible before. But in my own life, in times of stress, I often find myself going back to the book of Ecclesiastes. And I think it's a good reminder for all of us too, because by the way, it's written by the wisest man ever to be on earth besides Jesus. So Ecclesiastes is a book in which the author is trying to find meaning in life. It's like the Groundhog Day movie. It's, okay, I'm going to try to make my life meaningful this way today. That didn't work, I'll go this way today. And our life is like that. We have repeated days over and over again, 365 days a year for however many years we live, where we get to try again. We get a do-over every time that alarm goes off in the morning. It might not literally be Groundhog Day that we wake up, but every day is a new day, a new chance to live our life differently. And a lot of times what we do is we go down paths that are pointless, thinking that, oh, this is what life is all about. So by way of review, Solomon, he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes. He calls himself preacher in the book. His family line is David is his father, Bathsheba is his mother. He has great wisdom, he has great power, he has great wealth. And in fact, I know I talked about this years ago when I taught on Ecclesiastes. He pretty much could have whatever he wants. So much abundance that he even had, and it's crazy, and it's wrong and all that. He had 700 wives and 300 concubines. I mean, this is a guy that could fulfill any sort of earthly desire you might want. But his life is actually full of ups and downs. He doesn't follow God later on in life. He forsook God, and now he kind of looks back at his life in the book of Ecclesiastes, and at the end of his life, as we've talked about before, he ends up saying everything is vanity. Key word of the book. Have you ever read the book of Ecclesiastes? You've probably, if you have maybe a New American Standard, it says the word vanity of vanities, all is vanities, over and over again in that book. That word, though, kind of has an interesting meaning to it. It means meaningless, it means pointless, it means futile. In fact, one translation, the International Standard Version, translated the key verse of the book. Utterly pointless, says the teacher, absolutely pointless, everything is pointless. Wow, Solomon, you're really kind of brightening up our day, right? But that idea of looking at life and saying life is pointless, utterly pointless, there's no meaning to it, we've all been there before, right? We get up every morning, the alarm clock goes off, especially on the day when we have to spring forward, which that is utterly pointless, by the way. But, that happens, and we think, here's another day. And then we go through our day. We eat breakfast, we do whatever it is we do, we eat lunch, we do whatever it is we do, we go to bed, and they're like, well, that day's over. I don't even remember what I did today. So then the next day comes, and we engage in the same thing over and over and over again. Solomon kind of looks at his life in that way as one never-ending Groundhog Day movie, and at the end of it, he's like, it's all pointless. But what's crazy is while he's whining throughout this book about how meaningless life is, Solomon actually finds the answer to all of it. Although the more I look at it, I think he kind of gets sarcastic about it at the end. But Solomon finds the answer to what life is. He literally discovers the meaning of life. And now we're like, well, there's no way, right? No, it is right here. In the Bible, we have for us, written by the inspiration of God, by Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, the actual meaning of life. And in fact, it was always a joke as a kid on a cartoon. Someone asked, what is the meaning of life? Genie, what's your wish? Tell me the meaning of life. That kind of thing. Solomon actually tells it to us in this book. The book of Ecclesiastes is all about Solomon trying to find meaning, and the book ends with him finding it. That's how cool it is. Let me take you on a quick little intellectual journey with Solomon as he does it. Because as you go into the book of Ecclesiastes, what he does is he ends up determining, give or take, about 18 things that don't really matter. In the same way, like I ask you, what would you save out of your burning house? You'd realize really quick what actually matters to you. I wouldn't save my TV. Now, I like my TV. I spent a decent amount of money on my TV. I'm proud when small groups is at my house that I now have a TV that you can read the lyrics on. Everybody made fun of me about the other TV. But, right? But in a fire, I wouldn't save that TV. In a fire, I wouldn't worry about things. I don't have a lot of things of value. Jewelry or something. We have like 3 rings or Zinni's wedding rings or something like that. But I wouldn't worry about that thing. I wouldn't worry about furnishings. I'd worry about my family, right? I'd worry about my children. I would care about them. And you realize, okay, these other things don't really matter to me. If I had one day left to live, Would I be stressed out worrying about the fire inspection of the church building that's been keeping me up late at night for the last 4 days? No, that really doesn't matter. Yeah, you're like, well, yeah, it does. What if we all catch fire? That goes for the other illustration. I'll help save you, not the pews. But, Solomon does that. He goes through in this intellectual journey about the things that don't really matter. I'll give you an example. In chapter 1, verse 14, he talks about how he sought meaning in all the works of men, basically accomplishments. And he tells you, oh, wait, that is vanity. Don't we try to find meaning in life by earthly accomplishments? Yes, we do. Solomon would tell you that's vanity. So then Solomon goes another path. Maybe I'll find meaning in pleasure, that hedonism type idea. And in the end, Solomon would tell you that's pointless. It's meaningless. He'll say, I sought out to find pleasure. And he goes, that was pointless. And so many of us think, if I can just feel good, if I can find happiness, then my life will have meaning. And you realize that pleasure is empty. You look at these celebrities or people with great wealth that could pretty much have anything they ever wanted, and they end up addicted to drugs and killing themselves. Because meaning isn't found in pleasure. And Solomon finds out there's emptiness to that. So he goes on, he goes, okay, maybe if pleasure doesn't bring meaning, maybe earning money and finding profit from labor, working hard, that'll give me meaning. Nope. He'll tell you that's vain. So he talks about, well, the quest for wisdom. Maybe the meaning of life is seeking wisdom like a great philosopher might do. Solomon says, nope, there's actually no meaning in that either. That's all pointless. He goes through the book and talks about that. He even talks about, should we focus on earthly accomplishments at all? And he'll tell you that, no, that's pointless. It's meaningless. It's vanity. An interesting one that stood out to me too was even thinking about life itself is meaningless. Look at chapter 3, verse 19. Solomon says, for the fate of the sons of men and the fate of beasts is the same. As one dies, so dies another. Indeed, they all have the same breath, and there is no advantage for man over beast, for all is vanity. He says, they all go to the same place. I love that because that sounds like modern speech. They all go to the same place. All came from dust and all return to dust. Basically goes, why are we even so freaked out about life? We breathe the same air as animals. We die the same way as animals. It's all pointless. You can see how Solomon's kind of going through an intellectual exercise here of maybe some depression. But all of these things, Solomon says over and over again, do not bring meaning to life. They're pointless. And then he goes into some that kind of step on my toes. Competition. In chapter 4, verse 3, he alludes at this idea that competing in rivalry between man and his neighbor. In verse 4 of chapter 4, he says, this too is vanity in striving after the wind. I like to compete in jiu-jitsu tournaments, not so much that I'm old and out of shape, but my kids do, and we hype it up. We take the team, we try to win, and we get our medal, stand on the podium, and big whoop, no one really cares. It's nothing. Competition is nothing. Trying to be better than my neighbor. I have this mental thing, and me and Zinni have talked about it before, where I'm always trying to prove something to somebody who doesn't exist. I'm always like, that'll show them. Show who, Zinni says. I don't know, somebody. But that's pointless and meaningless in life. Solomon says it is vanity. It is striving after the wind. It doesn't work. So maybe there's no meaning in competition. Maybe there's meaning in riches. Nope. Solomon says storing up riches is meaningless. It's vain. There's no point in it. Okay, well maybe life is found in trying to make anyone happy. Chapter 4, verse 16. There is no end to all the people, to all who were before them, and even the ones who will come later will not be happy with him. For this too is vanity and striving after the wind. I know we think, oh, trying to make people happy, that'll make me meaning in life. No, even that is vanity because you can't make everyone happy. That's hard, right? I like making people happy. As a preacher, as a church leader, as someone, it feels good when I preach a sermon and everybody's happy, and I make decisions and people are happy. I run a program and people are happy. When I make a program and people complain, I hate this, I want to quit. And Solomon says, that doesn't really matter. It's meaningless. It's vanity. What about money? Maybe money will bring me happiness. You know the answer to that. Solomon will tell you that it is vanity. Okay, well maybe money doesn't make me happy, so if I have wealth, I shouldn't use it for anything. No, that's vanity too, Solomon would say in chapter 6. Okay, what about being very good at speaking, being able to weave wonderful speeches and words together, and maybe the more I talk, the more happiness I'll find? Solomon says what? It's vanity. It's pointless. it's meaningless. So he's on this great pursuit, trying to find meaning in life. So then he goes, okay, if that doesn't bring me, maybe being smart doesn't make me have meaning, I'll be dumb. So he talks about hanging out with people who do not think soberly, basically hanging around idiots. He goes, well, there's no meaning in that either. Then he talks about being our attitude toward evil. Maybe if I hate evil, then I'll have meaning in life. Solomon says, that's vanity. Then he talks about maybe I can find meaning in life through a system of justice and retribution. And nope, that's meaningless. Maybe nostalgia is where life has meaning. Maybe thinking about the past. Maybe thinking about the good old days. Maybe that will find meaning in life if I could just get that back. And I think some of us feel that way, right? We all have this mythical good old days in our mind. And Solomon says in chapter 11, verse 8, indeed, if a man should live many years, let him rejoice in them all, and let him remember the days of darkness, for there will be many. Everything that is to come will be futility. Can't worry about the past, can't focus on the future. It is all empty. And in fact, death itself does not bring meaning to life. Whew. So Solomon covers a lot of ground. You can tell this is a guy that's trying to find, he's searching. What is the meaning of all of it? And over again, he just says it's all pointless. Right? Utterly pointless, says the teacher. Absolutely pointless. Everything is pointless. So at this point in his intellectual journey, Solomon is maybe sitting back thinking, maybe there is no meaning to life after all. And I think sometimes we've been there too. Everything we thought would bring us joy and happiness and all of that doesn't. And maybe with the things that were supposed to work out didn't work out. The plan you had wasn't a plan that is in front of you. And maybe you, like Solomon, you think, maybe there's no meaning to any of this. In that question, Solomon, I think, starts to see that all along he's actually been discovering the meaning of life. In this venting about how meaningless everything is, he actually starts to unravel what the meaning of life is all about. This is the big answer to the universe right here, okay? I mean, if you need to pay attention to one sermon, it's this. This is the answer to everything in the universe. Solomon is starting to find it in this intellectual journey, but he hasn't stated it yet. But all along the way, he has been dropping little hints. As he finds out what doesn't have meaning, he gets a little bit of hint of what does have meaning to it. All along the way, in this quest for meaning, Solomon starts to see that what has meaning is not any of that, but what has meaning is a life with God. And I'm going to prove it to you, and then we're going to bring it into a conclusion here in a second. Let's look at a few passages in Ecclesiastes that are a little bit better than all the womp-womp, negative, Debbie Downer passages. So along the way, here's what he's going to show us. First off, while he's seeking wisdom and glory and riches and fame and power and pleasure, he makes this statement about wisdom and joy. He says, there is nothing better for a man than to eat and drink and to tell himself that his labor is good. This also I have seen that it is from the hand of God. For who can eat and who can have enjoyment without him? The one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner he has given the business of gathering and collecting, only to give to one who pleases God. So he's still trying to wrestle with, okay, what's the point of it all? Is it about filling your belly? Is it about meals? Is it about because if I eat, someone else doesn't have, and they're going to have to give it to someone who does like God, and on and on? But he makes this statement. Who can eat and who can have enjoyment without him? So while he's trying to find enjoyment from food, he realizes that, wait, maybe you can't find joy or wisdom at all without God. But then he doesn't elaborate on it anymore. He kind of keeps going with his whining. Then you get to chapter 3, verse 11. He makes a statement. He says, he has made everything beautiful in its time. In his ranting about time and everything, he says, he has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. He's kind of upset because you can't understand anything. But then in the midst of not understanding anything, he understands everything. God has made everything beautiful in its time. You might not be able to comprehend it, but it's there. Another one. Look at chapter 3, verse 14. He makes this statement. He says, and I know that whatever God does is final. Nothing can be added to it or taken from it. Now you might go, see, I have no power at all. But there's truth in this that's valuable. He says God's purpose is that people should fear him. What is happening now has happened before, and what will happen in the future has happened before, because God makes the same things happen over and over again. Now that could be a bitter person talking, saying, God just makes the same thing happen over and over and over again. Or it could be, hey, God's in control. God makes the same things just happen over and over again according to his will. God has purpose to everything. See, it depends on how you look at it, right? You can look at that and go, ugh, I have no power over anything. Or you can look at that and go, praise be to Jesus, God is in control. You see the difference in all that? I mean, you can look at the fact that you don't understand anything in time, or God has made everything. Or you don't understand how you can find joy. Well, you can have joy with God. See, it all depends on how you look at everything that you're whining about. Solomon, in his intellectual journey, trying to find meaning to life in everything earthly, actually discovers the meaning of life. Although I don't know if he intentionally articulates it the right way along the way. But it's there. See, he literally discovers what the meaning of life is. And then when you get into chapter 12, he actually says it. Now, it seems like he's kind of giving up his hands and saying, I quit. Here it is. And sometimes people in foolishness can declare something truthful. And he does that here. It's almost like he's like at his wit's end. But then look what he says. He gives you the meaning to life. So this is the point where you wake up, pay attention, take a note. This is the meaning of life right here. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13 and 14. Maybe the only verse you need to know. Okay? It says this. The conclusion, when all has been heard, is fear God and keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. For God will bring every act to judgment, everything which is hidden, whether it is good or evil. That's it right there. That is the meaning of life. It's nothing else but to fear God and keep his commandments. You need God. You should trust him. You should follow him. Because what Solomon has discovered along this entire intellectual journey of whatever you want to call it, by what medical term it is, I don't know, depression, anxiety, stress, all sorts of disorders. The guy's all over the place. But he concludes that life without God has no meaning. The reason why everything seems utterly pointless in that entire journey of his is because God's not in there. Life without God has no meaning, but all of a sudden, life with God is meaningful. It has purpose. There's a point to it all, even when it stinks, even when the life is not what you would want. There's meaning to it because you have God in it. So whether you're depressed, anxious, worried, stressed, uncertain, angry, empty, afraid, whatever emotion it is, life with God is the cure. That's where you're going to find meaning and purpose. So as we talked about at the beginning of this lesson, so much we're looking for, where's the answer to it all? Well, it was discovered a very long time ago, and it's been right there in front of us. It's not all those wrong places, all those wrong ways. It's not by thinking that you could have it all. It's by fearing God and keeping his commandments. So the movie Groundhog Day. I know it's a Hollywood picture and all that, but there's some really deep intellectual exercises in this. If you have the same day to live over and over again, what should you do? You should make sure God's in it. You should fear God and keep his commandments, and don't stress about all those other things. And I know we don't have technically the same day repeated over and over again, but every day I wake up and every night I go to bed. And I do the same thing the next day. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that Tuesday. Now, except Jesus comes back or I die, I'm going to, hopefully, Lord willing, do that a lot more times. So I'm going to be repeating the same day over and over again. And I guarantee it, I'm going to forget this message and I'm going to drift out there and try to find meaning in other things. But the way I'm actually going to find meaning and purpose in life is by remembering what Solomon discovered so long ago. That life without God is meaningless. But life with God has purpose. And the secret to life is fear God and keep his commandments. And I love what he says, because this applies to every person. Yeah, but what about me? My situation is different. No, it's not. This applies to every person. You're going to live another day tomorrow, Lord willing. How are you going to use it? You have the rest of today to live. How are you going to use it? Are you going to use it by glorifying God, by walking with God, by finding meaning in serving him? Or are you going to try to find meaning someplace else? The lesson is yours. There's been an invitation song that was selected. I'll be up here to help you if you have a need, but we can also talk afterwards as well. But right now, let's stand and let's sing.